Hello and welcome to Atop the Fifth Wall, where Linkara's comics burn! And I promise I won't do that voice for the whole review. For all two of you who don't know who Linkara is, he's a comic book reviewer on That Guy with the Glasses who shits on comics because they have illogical plot points, terrible artwork, and have tits in them. But what most people don't realise is that in 2006, he made a webcomic of his own titled Lightbringer. You see, a while ago he made this claim that he's not going to review webcomics because they're not professional and they shouldn't be judged by those standards. But the real reason is that if he started reviewing webcomics, he would cop it more than a woman in the Middle East committing adultery. But since I'm an arsehole, I'm going to review them anyway. So sit back and enjoy this presentation of terrible artwork, straw-manning, self-insertion and preachy rubbish.
Welcome to Atop the Fifth Wall, where Linkara's comics burn. Fat Kara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn.
Today's reference clips in place of actual humor. Freddy got fingered. We start with a cover that does what it should do, accurately convey what the comic is about. The cover is terrible and lazy. It is obvious all he has done is drawn a sketch of the main character and used a Photoshop filter for the light effect. The fact that he couldn't be bothered drawing a background is a good sign of the quality you're about to see. We get our first look at Gotham City and man, the artwork has come a long way since then. The buildings look like they were made by someone who abused the line tool in Photoshop. We continue with a flashback explaining Bruce Wayne's backstory. It turns out his parents were killed by a street criminal who got away and... Oops! Wrong comic! That's Batman! How can I make such an obvious mistake?
My parents were murdered several years ago. It was declared a mugging and the perpetrator, suspected to be a gang member, was never caught.
Ah, that's how I made the mistake. Not only is the origin of the main character the same as Batman, but even the city is the same. Both Pharaoh City and Gotham were once peaceful cities overrun by crime. If a first-time reader saw this, they would stop immediately. Just like I did before I decided to review it. And if that didn't stop them, having only one giant panel on the page will. I have that counter there for a reason, because throughout most of his earlier comics, he does this to draw less artwork for excessive and pointless dialogue. And if you're curious, all he says is that the city is full of crime and people can't stop it. Apparently all that rambling text is needed to convey it. Get used to it. On the next page, we see that he runs a furniture store that sells giant chairs. Seriously, it looks like it was tailor-made for Sean Bowser's ass. It would explain why he's complaining about his business losing so much money, to the point that he's resorting to drastic action. But a close look at his numbers show that they are horribly inconsistent and nowhere near as bad as it seems. Now, since Linkara loves to nitpick at logical inconsistencies in comic books, from now on, I will do the same. Over a 5-year period, the months of December and November don't see a substantial drop. And after adding the end-of-year dates, you can see that the past 3 years have been fairly stable. In fact, the 4th year saw an increase. The only hint is the latest month of August being insanely low, but other than that, these numbers do very little to convey how bad he's doing. Anyway, on to the next page.
You saved me from the giant barracuda! But look, I salvaged the treasure! We can live like kings! We can live like kings!
Serpent. He's a loan shark, a thief, a murderer, a rapist, and the man I owe money to.
Her business treats you well, Granholm. After all, you have to pay me back by Friday.
But first and foremost, he's a member of the most organized gang in Pharaoh City, the Slavers.
You'll have your damned money by then, Serpent. Yeah, and to summarize that massive wall of text, basically the slaves kidnap and sell people as slaves or labor, use skillful lawyers to get away with crimes, and kill those who oppose them, even cops who've become scared of them. Again, this is obviously ripping off Batman, but let's move on to the next page.
Although there was little proof of it, it was suspected that a member of the Slavers was responsible for murdering my parents.
Good to hear. After all, you certainly wouldn't want any of your employees to become acquainted with my organization, would you?
Daddy, would you like some sausage? Daddy, would you like some sausages? Daddy, would you like some sausage? Sausages, sausages.
Okay, I have to bring this up. While the world of Batman doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you think about it, since the corruption is so over the top, in this comic it's even worse. Seriously, how the hell could it possibly get so bad that people are being kidnapped and sold as slaves every day? It's not like the country is run by a dictator, and it seems that only one city is affected, so in reality the military would get involved right away and put them in jail indefinitely, without trial or proof if they had to. Which they can now that the NDAA passed, but you're all bitching about SOPA to protect your precious lolcat videos to care about that. On the next page, we notice that he's abusing more text, which explains that as a kid, he discovered that he can create light and somehow turn it solid. While normally you would draw this and show the audience, this is Linkara we're talking about. The man is obviously scared shitless of the concept of show don't tell, since it would require him to do actual work. We also get to see his amazing MS Paint skills. If you look at the phone in the drawers, you'll see that he's obviously drawing with a mouse in MS Paint. It's amazing how a guy who expects to get a readership can't even be bothered to use a pencil. Ah, for fuck's sake! To summarize, this is just preachy exposition about how his parents were pacifist and how he's staying loyal to their ideology. It's another example of his fear of show, don't tell, but trust me, this part is very important to the so-called plot. Ah, fuck it, it counts. We start with a woman getting mugged and he decides to run like a bitch. The exposition dump in the first panel is him literally saying that he is scared and is running away as fast as he can. You could literally take out all this text on this page, and even with his childlike artwork, you could convey the same result.
I'm sexy! I'm a sexy boy! Ding dong! Ding dong! Ding dong! Ding dong! Ding dong!
As I ran, it seemed as though the rest of the city had been emptied so as to allow me to get back home as quickly as I could. I can't remember seeing a single car or person as I fled from my own conscience. I don't even remember going into my apartment. My mind was completely out of focus, and I couldn't take it anymore.
You know what? It's about time I started reading the commentary below.
Another exterior shot with a lack of cars or people due to my crappy drawing talents. It's nice when I can explain it away in dialogue, though, isn't it?
No, it's not nice. It's horribly lazy. All you did was draw a couple of lines and boxes and use the fill tool. And even if you do something like that, you don't admit it. On the next page, we get another exposition attack. You think that a guy that reads comic books often would understand how they work, but to sum up, all he says is that he's ashamed of himself for running away. He also rambles about how his parents were wrong about pacifism being a good way to stop evil. And at this point, you'll see the first time he ever used an extreme example to prove his point. The commentary below is the same damn thing, which should be a wake-up call that he is not subtle, but here's one bit I found interesting.
Against people like Saddam Hussein, or, in this case, the criminal elements of Pharaoh City, pacifism will give a person nothing but a bullet through the heart, or, as with Carter here, extortion, blackmail, and fear. Pacifism only gives evil a free ride to continue engaging in its practice without anyone to oppose it. It's really the basis of all superhero comics if you think about it, that violence can be employed to solve problems.
So since this comic is a projection of his real opinions, basically what he is saying is that he gets his morals from comic books. It's idiots like him that help justify the comics code.
Oh, this is fun! Look at me, Daddy! I'm a farmer! Oh, this is fun! Look at me, Daddy! I'm a farmer! I'm a farmer, Daddy!
Over on the next page, we see one of the worst drawn pair of hands I've ever seen. Look, any artist can tell you that hands are one of the hardest things to draw of the human body, but even then, this looks awful. The fact that he couldn't even trace around his own hand for something that's such a major focus is telling of his laziness. Even a child can draw around their own hand. I'll show you right now. fucking there. I'll do it for you, you idiot. Slow, see, you got to rush through your fucking shit, don't you? Around here, around the finger, see, even 6-year-olds are taught how to do this shit. I mean, you're a fan of furries, so I'm assuming you'll love to trace shit. Deviant art, motherfucker. Around. Yeah. And if you look at that, that hand looks better than what you fucking drew. Even then it looks like shit. Other than that, over the next 2 pages he says he's going to finally overcome his fears and fights by stopping a mugging. He is trying to save a woman and... Hang on a second. Sexism alarm! This is the 3rd time a woman has been seen as weak and in need of help, yet the men are perfectly fine. To imply that only women are weak enough to be captured by the slavers is sexist, Linkara. You're using the old damsel in distress trope to marginalize women. Gail Simone would be ashamed of you.
Oh, wake up your baby! Guys!
Outside of that, take a look at her arms. They're enormous. What kind of man thinks that women actually have arms that massive? They're bigger than most male arms. I know what you're thinking, and no, I'm not going to use pathetic and low cheap shots in this review. I'm going to stay classy. Invisible Crane already cops enough shit on the internet already, and quite frankly, I think it's overdone.
Don't worry about him. He'll be fine. Although he certainly doesn't deserve to be. It's alright now. Step out of the darkness.
And into my light.
And our first glimpse of the superhero reveals that Linkara loves to abuse lens flare, a technique that is shunned by anyone who knows what the fuck they're doing. Good to see he couldn't be bothered drawing his character's power. Also, I must ask, why on earth would you have your superhero have such a narrow jaw? Look at Superman and Batman. Usually when you have a strong man beating people up, they tend to have a square jaw to make them look more manly. I can't think of a reason why a character would have such a narrow... Oh. What an ego. And hang on a second. Why would he change his hair blonde? And for some reason he is covering his blue eyes, blonde hair, white... Lightbringer is an Aryan Nazi! No wonder everyone thinks Linkara is a neocon. He created the world's first Nazi superhero! Oh, and I forgot this. That's the end of issue 1, but since this is a 2-part comic and we really don't get much closure here, I will drive straight into the second issue. We start with the cover of Arianbringer, and you'll notice that he decided to make a background this time, but looking at it shows that he's only a little bit less lazy. If you look at the blue building, you'll see that it's obvious that he only used a very basic gradient in Photoshop. In fact, if you look at the lines of the building, you'll see that the blue parts don't match their angle to match its shape. Speaking of the lines, take a look at how they're angled on the side. On a 3D shape, they should all have the same angle, but here they're all over the place and it just looks strange like Cher's face. Also, look at the lines on the left building. He couldn't even be bothered matching them up. He managed to do it just fine on the other buildings, so it is obvious he rushed this and didn't care at all.
It's crazy! Listen to my hooves! Yeah! Listen to my hooves! Yeah! Listen to them cloppity clop! Listen to them cloppity clop! Zebra in America!
Anyway, we start the story with a generic news bit that's been used in every superhero comic in existence. From one end of Pharaoh City to another, people are talking about him. The question on everyone's lips is, of course, who is the Batman? I mean Lightbringer. The last 2 pages simply exist to make Nazibringer look awesome. All he says in these boxes is that he's doing awesome at the moment and he's just fucking brilliant. Look at the smug smirk on his face. Anyway, on the next page, holy shit, more than 2 panels! Okay, well, it seems like he's made an improvement. Those walls of text are still in full force. And as usual, they say very little. It's just him explaining why he chose his costume, which no one cares about. It is obvious that this is just Linkara giving a commentary when he's supposed to be telling a story. For more proof that it's him, he says this in the third box, most likely about his own parents.
When I was young, my parents tried to keep me away from comic books, thinking they promoted violence as a method of solving problems. Still, I read them in secret.
While normally these kinds of parents are wrong and have no basis for their bullshit, but the fact that he gets his morals from comic books means that, ironically, they're right. He also says this.
It's the hair that I'm really proud of, though.
Oh, I bet you are. It really helps you fit into Nazi Germany, doesn't it? On the next page, we're introduced to Commissioner Gordon. Chief Crane. Yeah, we're calling him Commissioner Gordon from now on, since all that text is just him saying the same thing from Batman. We don't officially support vigilantism, but we secretly think he's awesome. Yeah, he rips off Batman even further by having them meet in secret, just one-on-one. We cut to his furniture business so the text boxes can introduce us to the employees we will never give a shit about. Apparently Gary is meant to be the funny one. Since Linkara is a funny guy... Sorry, I can't even say that with a straight face. Let's see an example of this guy's trademark humour. I've just got to ask myself, if he's got the time to learn sewing, put together a costume, and then start fighting crime in it, why is this guy not in fashion design? It's what I'd do if I could do all that. Yep, this is why he throws in reference clips in his show instead of actual jokes. Moving on, and we are introduced to Hannah, who wants to be a stock girl. Problem being that Nazi Bringer is reminded of the time when he used to be a straw man for pacifism being evil and starts feeling guilt. He questions why a woman would want to do a physical labor job, but she proceeds to show him that she can lift a 110-pound table over her head, impressing Nazi Bringer. So, Lightbringer, who's essentially Linkara, is impressed by a woman who's strong and has large arms. How about that? Must stay classy. We go back and see Commissioner Gordon meet up with Batman as they ramble about vigilantism and whether it is good or bad. And Christ, Gordon's pupils are massive. I don't think that's a cigarette he's smoking either. Well, they continue on the next page and... wow, you're a lazy cunt. There is easily enough speech here for him to draw 6 panels, but his inconsistency is really starting to become noticeable. He only seems to want to work hard when he feels like it, to the point where the lines leading up to the speech bubbles make it look like crap. Oh, and for what it says, blah blah blah, take down the slavers. Seriously, that's it. You've heard this a million times before. So he decides to fly back to his store and call it a night, but sees 3 stickmen outside of his building. Since I assume he has watched the stick death flash animations, he goes down to stop them. Either that, or it's because they're black, because, you know, Aryan. It turns out it's the slavers, and they plan on burning his store, but Nazi-Bringer decides that he's gonna beat them up.
I'm going to enjoy this.
Jesus Christ, look at that smile. A smirk would have worked just fine, but this just makes him look psychotic. In fact, it looks so bad you can make a meme out of it.
I'm going to enjoy this.
Rape.
I'm going to enjoy this.
Goat porn.
I'm going to enjoy this.
Banning dissenting opinions. In fact, I encourage you to spam that meme more than My Little Pony so I can sell quote tees.
I can walk backwards fast as you can. I can walk backwards fast as you can. I'm the backwards man, the backwards man. I can walk backwards fast as you can. I'm the backwards man, the backwards man. Backwards man, the back.
Since he shoved fan art in between 2 pages that link together, I thought I would show you this. This right here is the first bit of fan art he ever received, and it's a female version of his character. The feminist in him must be very proud. Let's see what he said about it.
Subsequently, this is the first piece of fan art Lightbringer has ever received. even if it was by request. Wink. As such, how's about some more of it from you wonderful readers so I can get a fan art page started? Huh? Come on, you know you want it.
Wow, he is so miserable and unliked that he has to ask for fan art. And look at him beg for more like Sean Bowles begs for money. He mustn't have any friends. Anyway, back to the comic. We get further confirmation that he loves abusing effects by clearly using it to hide the fact that he used the same drawing twice. Not only that, but he clearly didn't bother drawing a background. On the next page, you see that he is hanging upside down. All he does is interrogate him about where the leaders are, and the guy tells him nothing, so he decides to drop him and ramble about how evil he is. While falling, he appears to drop in some water, and then Nazibringer decides to choke him to get answers. With Linkara being a conservative, and this comic clearly showing he has no problems with water torture and suffocation, he must be a big Rush Limbaugh fan. What's that phrase Linkara uses whenever a hero gets overly violent? Oh, that's right. Our hero, ladies and gentlemen! Fucking hypocrites. Let's read his commentary.
Yes, Lightbringer really made a rubbery net of light in order to stop Serpent from dying. Blah, 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 blah. Also, that's not just a random gradient background. It's Lodestar Tower, as seen from page 1 of issue 1 and the cover of issue 2.
Keep telling yourself it's not a gradient filter. Just like you keep telling yourself your reviews are funny. We get more fan art, and after 2 entries, it's obviously clear that his fan art is far better than his own. He must cut himself at night. Let's look at his commentary.
Another fan art. This time it wasn't requested at all.
Not requested, my hairy testicle, before you were begging for more fan art. Keep telling yourself people actually like you, you fucking loner. Back to the comic, and we see that Commissioner Gordon is still tweaked out of his mind. All he says is that he will lock that guy away, and on the next page, we see 2 people who are going to help Nazibringer take down the slavers. The end. Since we're done, it can't hurt to read the last bit of commentary. Let's have a look.
Before you ask, yes, it is a reference to Dazen. I'm an imp.
An imp? What the fuck?
And this is actually also the very first crossover with my Angel Armor books. What's that? You don't remember Co-Poet in the books? Well, that's because she technically doesn't appear for another 2 books. Still, the character originated in the books, and believe it or not, Lightbringer and Angel Armor are in the same universe. Still, who are they, and what sort of help do they bring? Find out next week in issue 3.
Even back in 2006, he liked putting in pointless cameos. But since he clearly had no friends, he decided to have crossovers with himself. Linkara, I thought you were Christian. You're kind of allowed to play with yourself. Look, in conclusion, this comic is god-awful. The artwork could literally be done by a 9-year-old with MS Paint. The villain is so insanely over-the-top evil that he's boring and uninteresting. And the comic is a blatant rip-off of Batman. Hilariously, the scenario and setup are nowhere near as realistic and believable as the one in Batman. And Batman isn't even realistic to begin with. Oh, and this comic sucks! Yeah! Who the hell is that?
Trolls!
What are you doing here?
We are the trolls of the internet, and we have come to tie you up and hold you prisoner.
Why?
It is what you get for starring in crappy reviews and circle jerk films.
Hey! The anniversary movie is made in celebration of the founding of That Girl with Glasses. It's meant to be a fun additional series of videos to commemorate the website's founding, and whether you like it or not, That Girl with Glasses has a large fan base, ranging at some point to receiving hundreds of thousands of visits in a single day. However, the large amount of viewers don't necessarily watch all the producers for the website, which already boasts over 30 different producers. But we all fly the same banner of That Girl with Glasses, which means we take part in that celebration. We make these movies, as I said, in celebration. However, we feel that such an event should be something fun for the fans as well, so we...
Stop avoiding criticism and let us tie you up! If you don't, we start E-drama!
What kind of E-drama will be so bad that I'll allow you to do that?
Upside down cross!
Fine, tie me up. What the hell do you want with me anyway?
You'll see! You'll see! We are Legion, lol! We do not forgive! We do not forget! We base our morals on a comic book!
Follow your nose! It always knows the flavor of death! Wherever it goes! Always after me lucky charms. The toasted oat cereal with the sweet surprises. Well, I've got a sweet surprise for you, you crumb-snatching little bastards. If it weren't for you, I'd be sitting under me favourite toadstool, sipping Irish whiskey from dawn till dusk.